死工造想学马尔康。如如你呢？你会讲20多台电脑我都没中。
如如你呢
？salary 到账了，说明你还给我涨哎。你呢？
你工资涨了吗？见朋友还怕谈钱，咱投资理财改变生活。
我是 KK, you're watching Whose Time?
被中国读者亲切地称呼为 KK 的美国作家，现年64岁的凯文·凯利，有着互联网预言大师的美誉。他1952年出生于美国的宾夕法尼亚州，1971年在罗德岛大学就读1年后辍学，成为自由摄影师。1981年在美国创办步行杂志，1983年呢担任全球概览杂志的编辑及出版人，1992年创办科技类杂志《连线》，并担任执行主编。1994年，凯文·凯利的《失控》一书问世，对科技发展趋势做出了超前的预测，提出了包括物联网、云计算、虚拟现实、网络社区等在内的热门概念。此后呢，他又陆续发表了《科技想要什么》、技术元素、新经济、新规则等多部作品。2015年的年底，凯文·凯利的新作《必然》出版。作为观察、反思、展望3部曲的收官之作，凯文·凯利在书中详细阐述了未来20年科技发展的12种必然趋势。而选择在中国率先出版此书，也令不少中国读者倍感惊喜。在中国的宣传新作期间呢，凯文·凯利也接受了财新时间的专访。
How many times you've been to China recently?
Probably 4 times.
Well, it's quite a lot.
Yes.
So why you are so interested in China? Is there any specific reason?
Yes, I'm coming for several reasons. One is because I'm invited to come to talk about what's coming in technology. But that's not the only reason I come. I also come because while I live in Silicon Valley, where the future is happening really fast, the future is happening even faster here in China. And because of the numbers of people, I really feel that China will be deciding the future in this coming century. So I'm here to find out what my future is.
We know this time you come to Beijing is meant about your new book, The Inevitable. Right. And this time, as we know, the Chinese version is published even before the English version. Yeah. It's quite unique. Yes. Why?
In fact, it's a lot earlier than the English version. The English version won't be out until June of next year. One is I have probably more fans in China than in the US. And the secondly is China, as you know, is just very quick and very agile, likes to do things fast. And secondly, I think that there is just an audience. I think in the US there is probably a lot more material, people hear a lot more. So I think here I can talk to people because of my previous books that I have an audience, and then I think there was a sense that, well, let's do this really fast. So it was made possible, in fact, because there was multiple translators working on the book. This book, The Out of Control, was crowdsourced. The translation was crowdsourced. This one, there weren't as many translators. There was 3, but there was still parallel translation, which was made possible through technology. And so I was also interested in that idea of trying to have the book done on a faster speed.
We all know you are very popular here in China. Everyone call you KK. Mm-hmm. And what makes your Chinese readers especially passionate about your works?
I have to say that I've been lucky in China. So when I wrote Out of Control, my first book, I wrote it in the early 90s. It was published in 94. Again, I finished writing it years before it came out. So when it came out in America, it was too early. It didn't make sense to anybody because there was no web. There was some internet that people heard about, but they didn't have any experience about it. So it didn't make any sense to them, and it completely was ignored. When it was translated and came out in China, it was at the right time. So the Chinese the timing was perfect. So timing is everything. So it came out and it was just at the right time when it was useful. Everybody could kind of understand it, and it made sense. So that was why I was lucky.
Right. Can you briefly talk about your new book to the audience? And do you think any of the new theses that you raised in this new book refute some of the opinion in your previous ones? And not because you changed your mind, but because the technological advancement is too fast and become reconciled.
It's a good question, but I don't think that it. In fact, if I was to go back and have to rewrite the book 20 years ago, I wouldn't change anything other than the examples, which I would update. I think and that's why it still works in China 20 years later, is because it still works. And this new book is the same thing. It's more of an extension of what I've been saying, and trying to be a little bit more specific about the next 20 years instead of the last book, What Technology Wants, took a long view of history and the cosmos. I'm trying to think, next 20 years, what will happen? So that's what this book is about. The Inevitable is talking about trends, technological trends, that have been happening for 20 years. They're not new. None of the things I'm talking about are new. They've been happening for 20 years. And because of technology, they're going to continue for another 20, 25 years. And so I'm saying, here are the trends. I'm not trying to predict specific things. Those aren't inevitable. Those are unpredictable. I'm trying to talk about these large-scale trends which are predictable and we can forecast. Say, yeah, copying is native to technology, digital technologies. You can't stop things from being copied. There are going to be more copying in the future. That's sort of what I'm talking about.
You know, the Internet Plus, the concept is very hot here in China. Even is elevated to the national stage. What do you think about this trend?
I've never read what the Internet Plus is, so I have only my idea, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And my idea from hearing people ask me about it is that you take some industry, traditional industry, and you add the internet to it. So
That's pretty much it.
you take agriculture and you plus it with internet. And I think that's to a rough approximation, I think that's correct. That every industry will be affected by the addition of the internet to it. I'm suggesting in my new book, The Inevitable, that there's another stage after the Internet Plus, which is basically artificial intelligence plus. You take whatever industry there is, and we're going to add artificial intelligence to it and transform it in that way. And what's interesting about that, it'd be like the internet, which is, if you're in business, you don't make the internet, you just get the internet, you plug into it. And the same thing will be happening with AI, artificial intelligence, which is that you're not going to make the AI, you're just going to plug in and get the AI to do your new business.
Does China's obsession with internet remind you to some extent the .com bubble in the US decades ago?
Yeah, so I wrote a book, my second book, called The New Rules for the New Economy. And that came out just at the worst time of the .com bubble. And at that time, I told people, what I'm talking about has nothing to do with stocks. It has nothing ups and downs. It has nothing to do with .coms. I don't use that word. That these trends that are taking place are much more powerful than the ups and downs of the stock market. They're more powerful than bubbles coming and going. So I tend to ignore the bubbles. And what I told the many people who were very distraught by the bubble is like, this is the best thing that could happen because all those companies that failed, they have gotten an education in business better than you could get at business school, and they're going to come back with renewed vigor and interest in ideas, and that's exactly what happened.
Here's also one peculiar thing about China's IT industry. I mean, China has been really creating this parallel universe that comfortably coexist with the rest of the world. Like, you have Facebook, Twitter, and we have Weibo, and you have WhatsApp, we have WeChat, and you have Uber, we have Didi Taxi. So do you ever see this world will ultimately converge into one, or do you see China's world subsumed into the world? Or even another scenario that China's internet magnet will dominate the world?
That's a really great question, and I think the three scenarios that you paint have to be considered. I think we have to, each of those are possible. I don't know which way it will go, but I suspect, my suspicion is that in the end there'll be a universal single internet. And the reason why is because China's taken great strides in its innovation. But I think it'll be impossible for China to have a truly global brand and do that with protecting its inventions. In order for China to compete globally, it has to take down its barriers. And so in a certain sense, the kind of barrier that it has culturally and technologically to some extent is really good right now to helping it generate the birth. But at some point it has to take that fence down. I think the only way that you can have a dominating company is if it's really engaged with the whole world and competing all along.
在新书《必然》中，凯文·凯利预测，人工智能呢会是下一个20年颠覆人类社会的技术，而机器人取代人工是必然的，一切只不过是时间问题。第二次自动化浪潮正在引领着这项革命，而人工认知、廉价传感器、机器学习和分布式智能将成为变革的焦点。
So in the long term, do you think the AI will influence, make impacts on human beings?
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm going to say about the structure of the AI is that my imagination, my forecast, is that the AI will be primarily sold as a service on the cloud, on the internet, so that in the way that we buy electricity. Okay, so for 100 years ago, when they were electrifying the countries, people would take something that was manually done, like a pump, and they would electrify it. Somebody would have the idea, let's make an electric pump, and they would sell that. But they weren't making the electricity, they were buying the electricity from the grid. They would just purchase it, you would pay for it, and then you could use electricity and do all this amazing stuff. You could make a factory that was running. And I think the same thing is going to happen with AI. So you'll buy the AI and you'll use it, you'll use smartness. So it's like, imagine what you could do if you had like really, really smart resource running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on whatever you told it to do. So maybe you have an idea for making a smart shoe. And so you're going to have a shoe that learns how you walk and it anticipates and changes depending on what you're walking on. That AI is not in the shoe itself, it's just coming from the cloud. You're buying the AI to do this new service. So you have all this other stuff. Or you want to have AI into furniture. You want to have really smart furniture, or you want to have smart something or other. And you are just going to, everything that is dumb can be made smart. And so that is powerful because it means that we can personalize everything. It means that we can accelerate how fast it improves. And the thing about the cloud AI is that when one shoe learns, it shares with all the other shoes. So it's a collective intelligence. So this really speeds up how fast things improve. You know, the smart furniture is sharing that information, that smartness. So it's getting smarter and smarter very, very fast. And the way that the clouds work is that the smarter an AI gets, the more people want to use it. The more people that use it, the smarter it gets, and so it gets bigger and faster and smarter very quickly, which becomes very, very powerful. And I think it's hard to imagine anything that would not be improved by making it smarter.
But one day, finally, the AI maybe can raise some new confusion to human beings' social life or moral life.
Yes. So when you think about AI, what you want to think about is not like a robot that's like a human. You want to think about like Amazon Web Services. It's smart, but it's not conscious. There's a difference between being smart and conscious. Chimpanzees smart but not conscious. You can do all kinds of things. So the AIs that we're going to make are most useful or if they think differently than humans. The reason why we were going to put AI into our cars and have them drive is because they don't drive like humans. They aren't distracted. They're just focused. They aren't trying to text while they drive. The reason why we will have an AI be a doctor diagnosis like the Watson is doing is because they don't think like humans. So all the AIs that we're going to make, and there'll be many different types, thousands of different types of AIs, different types of thinking, is because we want to think different. We want them to think differently. That's the main value. A calculator on your phone is a kind of smartness. Your phone is smarter than you are in arithmetic because it doesn't think like you. It has a very different kind of thinking. That's why it's so valuable. It's not forgetting stuff. So there's very little reason to make an AI like a human, and it's very difficult to do that. And it's much more powerful to make AIs think differently than us. And there are even going to be some very hard problems that we have in physics, say dark matter, dark energy, quantum gravity, that our own minds alone may not be smart enough to figure out. And so we invent other kinds of minds that together we can figure out these things. So that's what we're doing, is we're creating other kinds of minds and AIs, and we are working together with them. Every invention that we make, every one of them, will produce and create new problems as well as a solution. Every one of them will make new problems. So we invent something that seems like solar energy. That will have new problems. That will make new problems that we didn't have before. But the solution to those problems is not less technology, it's better technology to solve those problems. And that technology will then produce new problems. But then we have new technologies to answer those. And so we are constantly making more and more possibilities, and that's good.
Yeah.
And so I like to say that even if the technology was producing 49% bad stuff, it produces 51% good. And that difference of 2% is very small. But I think that's what civilization is. I think that's how we build cities. I think that's how we make progress. It's only 2%. That's all we need. 2% every year, compounded, is very powerful. So even though there may be a small differential between the total good and the problems we created, that difference is what I believe in. That's the progress that we're having.
How can we control it? Can make the good part 51% and the bad part 49%, just like the nuclear weapon. Right. It's really demand on how can you control it.
So yes, and nuclear weapons versus nuclear power or electricity, which can solve China's air pollution problem. Okay, right? So if you had nuclear power, you would solve a lot of the air pollution problems in Beijing. You could breathe. And I think the reason why there's a difference we can control is that each time we make a new technology, we increase our choices. And our choices that's valuable. So we didn't have that choice before. We have more and more choices. That's why millions of people leave these beautiful villages in China with organic food, strong families, and they come to the cities. Why do they do that? Only for one reason, because they have more choices, more possibilities in a city. And so that's what the future is. We have more choices. That's why everybody's coming to the future. Nobody is moving back to the villages, because to do so you have to give up choices and possibilities.
Interesting. Yeah, we're always happy to have more opportunities.
Right, and that's what technology gives us. Out of that, that's the 2%.